Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Cobern, and today's episode is the Minnesota Vikings draft class. Starting with the first pick of the draft, Alvin Cook. When it comes to his production, he scored 93.11 out of 100, which is not the best production in this class, but it is all pro level. So very, very productive when it comes to his college production. But the athleticism is where all the problems kind of begin and end when it comes to Dalvin Cook. Only scored 23.61 in terms of explosiveness for his size, 73.69 when it comes to speed for his size, and 23.95 when it comes to flexibility for his size. The issue with this is that 92% of multiple Pro Bowl / All-Pro running backs since the 1999 NFL draft class had at least a 3-cone of 7.09 or lower, and the only back who had multiple Pro Bowls with a 3-cone that was higher than 7.09 is DeMarco Murray, and he at least hit the athleticism score of 79 or higher when it comes to his athleticism in terms of speed. Like, this is DeMarco Murray's athleticism compared to Dalvin Cook's athleticism. And that's a legitimate problem. Because the thing about running back that I think people don't realize is that when it comes to running back athleticism, it's not really about being a great all-around athlete when it comes to quality outcomes. It's about being really good in one particular attribute, whether it's speed, whether it's explosiveness, whether it's flexibility, and mostly it's flexibility, which is the big thing when it comes to running backs. And that's the issue that Cook has when it comes to long-term projection with him. But overall, I don't think it's a terrible pick. I mean, this is a back that has elite production with above-average speed as a athleticism trait. It's just when it comes to multiple Pro Bowl and multiple All-Pro outcomes, it would be very unlikely for Cook to reach that type of status based on his athleticism traits. And I mean, that's just the way it is when it comes to that. So I think that there's a lot of people that, and not only that, there are some things on film that kind of bear this out based on his film. So, I mean, at the very beginning of the year when I was watching his film against Ole Miss and a few other teams, he just didn't really look that explosive, and flexibility-wise, he wasn't breaking as many tackles as I thought he was trying to break. So there's just issues from that kind of perspective. But overall, it's a good pick. He's going to be a starting running back. It's just a matter of how good he's going to be, which is the big question mark when it comes to Dalvin Cook. And then we come to the next pick in Pat Elflein, offensive center / guard from Ohio State. When it comes to his athleticism, he scored 15.89 in terms of explosiveness, 42.09 when it comes to speed for his size, and 38.41 when it comes to flexibility for his size. That's not really getting it done when it comes to athleticism traits at the center position. He at least has a starter profile. The only center to become a multiple All-Pro / Pro Bowl center with athleticism traits this low was Travis Frederick. And Travis Frederick I always find a little with, just because he has a lot of help. You just look at the two guards right beside you. You have one of the most athletic guards in Zach Martin, and then you also have Ron Leary, who was hanging out, and then of course you had Lau Collins. Like, Zach, I mean, no offense to Travis Frederick, but he has a lot of people helping him on each side of his body, which is something that Elflein is not going to have in Minnesota. He doesn't, Elflein is not going to have Zach Martin. He's not going to have Ron Leary or even Lau Collins on his right side. So I just kind of wonder about this pick when it comes to athleticism, because even on film, there was instances where he was just kind of dominated a bit when it came to defensive tackles that were explosive, that had length. So we'll see how this pick turns out. I don't think he's going to be a terrible player based on the film that I've seen of him, but I do think that there are athletic concerns based on his athleticism testing, which is just basically starter level, and that's it. And I think it would be kind of, I just can't justify saying, oh, he's going to be a Pro Bowl or All-Pro guy when there's only been one center with that type of athleticism to become that type of player in Travis Frederick. So that's definitely a possibility, but it's an outlier that I don't like to project guys based on what outliers did. I like to project guys based on what the majority of the players did, and that's the issue with Elflein. Then we get to the next pick in Jalil Johnson, defensive tackle out of Iowa. When it comes to his production, he scored 92.89 in terms of solo tackle market share, 97.26 when it comes to sack market share, 93 when it comes to tackle for loss market share. And his only issue realistically is but athleticism. He scored 54.13 in terms of explosiveness for his size, 17.96 when it comes to speed for his size, and 59.49 when it comes to flexibility for his size. There have been 0 Pro Bowl or All-Pro defensive tackles since the 1999 NFL draft class with this type of athletic profile. But the one thing I can say is he shares lots of similarities with Demonte Pico from an athleticism standpoint and from a production standpoint, and this is actually Pico compared to Jalil Johnson when it comes to athleticism. So there is that potential there with Jalil Johnson. He could at least become a long-term starting defensive tackle. It's just high-quality outcomes are not necessarily in the tables for him based on his lack of athleticism traits. And then we get to the next pick of the draft in Ben Gideon, linebacker out of Michigan. When it comes to his production, he scored 52.22 in terms of solo tackle market share. And that's not getting it done when it comes to Pro Bowl and All-Pro outcomes. 100% of multiple All-Pro linebackers since the 1996 NFL Draft class had at least a solo tackle market share score of 91 or higher, and 100% of multiple Pro Bowl linebackers since the 1996 NFL Draft class had a solo tackle market share score of at least 77 or higher. So Ben Gideon doesn't hit the solo tackle market share that he needs to hit in terms of high quality starters. But the one positive he does have is athleticism. When it comes to that, he had 75.14 in terms of explosiveness for his size, 53.66 when it comes to speed for his size, and 89.13 when it comes to flexibility for his size. He is explosive and very flexible for his size. Based on that athleticism, I think there's a very good shot he could end up being a long-term starter. But just bear in mind that there are going to be some issues in terms of high-quality outcomes. Like Ben Gideon, based on his production, is not someone that I would view as a multiple Pro Bowl or multiple All-Pro player, but he has the athleticism. The athleticism is there at least to suggest that he could become a long-term starter. It's just high-quality outcomes are off the table based on his production. Then we get to the next pick in Ronnie Adams, wide receiver out of South Florida. When it comes to his production, he scored 65.49 in terms of market share production, passing yardage market share production. And when it comes to athleticism, he scored 10.10 in terms of explosiveness for his size, 56.15 when it comes to speed for his size, and 38.177 when it comes to flexibility for his size. Adams' big issue, realistically, is his production. 65.49 doesn't hit 3-time Pro Bowl level, it doesn't hit 5-time Pro Bowl level, and it doesn't hit perennial All-Pro level, which is even higher than that. So best case scenario, you have a starter here. He's a speed wide receiver based on his athletic skill set. They're going after a guy who as an athlete is very similar to Stephon Diggs, and actually this is Stephon Diggs compared to Rodney Adams. I'll be coming back to this point a little bit later with another wide receiver. I think that's kind of why they drafted him. He has a similar skill set to Stephon Diggs in terms of being a speed wide receiver who isn't exactly very explosive and isn't exactly very flexible, but his production is just not getting it done when it comes to long-term outcomes. And this is actually Rodney Adams compared to Stephon Diggs when it comes to passing yardage market share production. So I kind of see where they're going with this pick, but they're just not hitting it out of the park when it comes to getting a guy who has the speed traits but doesn't have the production traits that you need for long-term outcome success. So high quality is kind of off the table for Rodney Adams, but he at least could become a long-term starter. Then we come to the next pick of the draft, and Danny Isidora, offensive guard out of Miami. When it comes to his athleticism, he scored 62.90 in terms of explosiveness for his size, 93.34 when it comes to speed for his size, and 44.62 when it comes to flexibility for his size. All those marks are good. At the very least, you have a potential Pro Bowl guard based on his athleticism traits. But the one area of concern is just with flexibility. 44.62. Anytime you have an offensive lineman that is below average in terms of flexibility, they're usually not terrible when it comes to the run game, but they do have issues when it comes to pass protection. They're not able to really anchor down exceptionally well for extended periods of time because they just lack the flexibility to to go, and when they go up against defensive tackles that have more flexibility, more ability to kind of out-leverage them, they don't do very well. But based on what I've seen with the Minnesota Vikings scheme, a very up-tempo, pass-happy kind of offense, trying to get rid of the ball very quickly, and the yards per attempt are very low, I think this pick could work in that scheme. So based on the above-average explosiveness and speed, I would at least project him as a starter, but there is potential that he could become a little bit better than that based on his, really, really good speed. So there are a lot of there are positives here. It's just that he doesn't have the flexibility, indicating someone that you want to put into a power scheme, but he does have the sort of flexibility to fit a scheme where you just want to get rid of the football very quickly, and you don't really care about the quarterback being back there for 7, 10 seconds to get big plays, or bigger plays, down the field. Excuse me. Then we come to the next pick in Bucky Hodges, tight end out of Virginia Tech. When it comes to his production, he scored 75.59 when it comes to passing yardage market share production, and this is at the tight end position, by the way, not the wide receiver position. And when it comes to his athleticism, he scored 98.90 in terms of explosiveness for his size, 92.18 when it comes to speed for his size, and 60.51 when it comes to flexibility for his size. When you look at this profile, he had Pro Bowl level production, and he also had really good explosives, really good speed, but he did not hit the All-Pro / Pro Bowl level when it comes to flexibility for his size. The best sort of comparison I can give for Bucky Hodges from an athletic standpoint and also somewhat from a production standpoint is Jared Cook. If you look at Bucky Hodges compared to Jared Cook, they have similar explosiveness, similar speed, and similar issues in terms of flexibility for their size. So I think that's probably the best sort of case scenario, is that Bucky Hodges becomes kind of a Jared Cook guy, but he doesn't exactly hit Jimmy Graham level, or, he's not Jimmy Graham. He just isn't Jimmy Graham. Get that out of your mind. Jimmy Graham is a much more flexible guy, and this is actually Jimmy Graham compared to Bucky Hodges as an athlete. So Bucky Hodges is impressive in terms of explosiveness and speed, but he just doesn't really compare when it comes to flexibility for his size, which is the big divide between him and Jimmy Graham when it comes to athleticism. Then we come to the next pick of the draft in terms of Stacy Coley, wide receiver out of Miami. When it comes to his production, he scored 54.60 out of 100, which again is not hitting 3-time Pro Bowl level, it's not hitting 5-time Pro Bowl level, and it's not hitting All-Pro level when it comes to long-term success outcomes. And then when it comes to athleticism, he scored 43.15 in terms of explosives for his size, 70.37 when it comes to speed for his size, and 28.93 when it comes to flexibility for his size. Another guy, let me just throw it up there, in terms of Stefon Diggs and Stacy Coley, they compare somewhat when it comes to being speed-dominant wide receivers who don't exactly have amazing explosiveness and don't exactly have amazing flexibility. But the big difference, again, is this is Stefon Diggs' production compared to Stacy Coley's production when it comes to passing yards market share production. I think best case scenario for Stacy Coley is he could become a long-term starter for the Vikings as a speed wide receiver. But again, he's not going to be taking Stefon Diggs' job, and he's not exactly someone that, based on his production, is going to have really, really successful or high-quality outcomes long-term. So again, I think you're looking at a guy that has potential to be a starter based on his athleticism traits, but not someone that you should consider a high-quality player going forward because of those issues. And even, most of the time, guys who scored this poorly in terms of production usually don't become much of anything, really. Most of the time they just become backups to reserve type. So I'm not expecting great things from this pick, but I do think that there is some potential for success when it comes to Stacy Coley. Then we come to the next pick. Again, another pick in Afidi Ondenigbo, which I probably said that wrong, but based on his production, he scored 14.95 in terms of solo tackle market share, 91 in terms of sack market share, and 64.07 in terms of tackle for loss market share. That's not exactly great, but again, he was a rotational player, and I am admitting the fact that that is a potential sort of thing. But let me just throw up kind of the players that were similar to him, just in terms of his production since the 1996 NFL draft class, actually 1989 NFL draft class. So I mean, again, he has good sack market share, he has good tackle for loss market share, but he doesn't really have really high solo tackle market share. But there are positives. In terms of his athleticism, he scored 69.40 in terms of explosives for his size, 74.13 in terms of speed for his size, and 64.74 when it comes to flexibility for his size. All those marks are above average. All those marks have some potential for high-quality outcomes. But based on that solo tackle market share, I'm just not comfortable projecting him as a high-quality player long-term. I think best-case scenario, you have a guy who can become a starter based on his athleticism traits. But again, that's best-case scenario. And if you can go back and look at sort of the production sort of similarities between him and other players. I don't necessarily think this is the greatest pick ever, but I do think he's a guy that could be useful in terms of rotation based on his sack market share and based on his tackle for loss market share. Then we come to the next pick, and this is by far probably the least favorite pick, I guess, when it comes to the Vikings in terms of Josh Harvey-Clemons, defensive safety out of Louisville. And when it comes to his production, he scored 56.57 in terms of solo tackle market share, 35.188 in terms of interception market share, and 35.98 when it comes to pass deflection market share. When it comes to his age score, he scored 45.72, which doesn't hit high-quality outcomes in terms of his age score. And when it comes to athleticism for his size, he only scored 47.54 in terms of explosiveness for his size, 13.05 when it comes to speed for his size, and 17.99 when it comes to flexibility for his size. He neither has Pro Bowl / All-Pro production, nor does he have Pro Bowl / All-Pro athleticism. And to be completely honest, I think he's going to have a very hard time sticking on the roster as even a backup based on his production and based on his athleticism traits. So this is the one pick that I don't think is really going to pan out that well for them long term. And, again, he's a guy that's below average in terms of age, below average in terms of athleticism, below average in terms of production. So those aren't good. Those aren't good. That's not good. It's not very good. It displeases me when you have a guy who hits those three marks poorly. So don't really think there's a lot with that, but that's just kind of how I feel about that pick from a data perspective. Then we come to the next pick, Elisha Lee, linebacker out of Kansas State. When it comes to his production, he scored 87.91 out of 100 in terms of solo tackle market share, which is Pro Bowl level. Again, Pro Bowl level linebackers have at least 77 or higher when it comes to solo tackle market share production, and Elisha Lee has that. Where he falls short is in terms of athleticism. Based on his athleticism, he scored 74.55 in terms of explosiveness for his size, 54.21 in terms of speed for his size, and 52.99 when it comes to flexibility for his size. The explosiveness is good, but the speed and the flexibility is not so good. So he doesn't really hit Pro Bowl level in terms of those marks or All-Pro level in terms of his speed and flexibility. But could this guy become a long-term starter? Absolutely. When it comes to linebackers, in general, if they at least hit above average marks in certain athleticism traits, they usually go on to be long-term starters. So I would say this isn't a terrible pick from that perspective, in that he can become a long-term starter. In fact, I expect him to become a long-term starter based on his production and based on his athleticism traits. It's just someone that you shouldn't expect to become a multiple Pro Bowl or multiple All-Pro player when it comes to him. And then the last pick in terms of the Minnesota Vikings is, of course, cornerback Jack Tojo from North Carolina State. When it comes to his production, he scored 69.19 in terms of solo tackle market share and 82.48 when it comes to pass deflection market share. And when it comes to athleticism, he scored 79.23 in terms of explosiveness for his size, 60 in terms of speed for his size, and 56.79 in terms of flexibility for his size. So pretty much good marks for Jack Tojo. His issue realistically is just athleticism. He doesn't have the athleticism profile of a Pro Bowl or All-Pro cornerback when it comes to his overall. When you just take a glance at his athleticism, he doesn't really hit all the marks he needs to hit in terms of those kind of outcomes. But he is productive. Again, 69.19 in terms of solo tackle market share, hits all the marks in terms of All-Pro production in terms of that, and 82.48 hits all the marks in terms of pass deflection market share. I think best case scenario is Jack Tojo becomes a starting cornerback for you guys, and he may surprise. He was one of the guys in terms of cornerbacks that I was a big fan of. Really shined at the Shrine game in particular, kind of really showed that explosiveness, and was a very, very smart player off the field, by the way, at the Shrine. So I think that's a good pick. I think he's going to end up being a long-term starter. So there's positives here to really consider. So how do I feel about the Minnesota Vikings draft? Well, I think you got a lot of stuff. You got a lot of players, and some of these guys are going to pan out. I think a majority of these guys are going to pan out. Alvin Cook, I think, is going to end up being a starter for you guys. Pat Elflein is going to be a starter. Pedro Johnson is going to be a starter. Ben Gideon, I think, is going to be a starter, definitely. Isidora is going to be a starter. Bucky Hodges is going to be a starter. Elisha Lee is going to be a starter, and Jack Tojo is going to be a starter. And then the other four players I mentioned, like Coley, Ronnie Adams, and Nafidi, I think going to be guys that are rotational initially, and then maybe they become starters, but there's also things pointing towards that not happening. And of course, Josh Harvey-Clemons is just kind of reserve backup stuff all across the board. So that's not exactly a pick I like the most. But when you look at all the picks that they got, it's a good draft. They got lots of players. The one issue, though, is you didn't get any high-quality players when it comes to upside. You didn't get any players that have a clean enough of a profile to suggest that they will be Pro Bowlers or All-Pro guys, pretty much. Like there's no players that you drafted who, based on their data profiles, match up with All-Pro players or Pro Bowl players over the last 20 years when it comes to athleticism, production, and age as well. So that's really the only issue with the Minnesota Vikings draft is you got a lot of you were Costco shopping basically. You got a lot of stuff, and some of it wasn't high quality, but you did get a lot of stuff that at least is going to be good. So you bought in bulk, which is a good thing, but you definitely didn't get high quality players. So that's really my only sort of criticism of the draft, is just that you didn't get a lot of players, or any players really, that have potential to be very, very high quality players from a data perspective. So, but overall, it was a good draft in terms of getting guys that can become starters and guys that have good overall profiles when it comes to those sort of situations. So again, my name is James Cobern. You can find my work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And again, if you like this channel, if you like the content on this channel, be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have any questions. And don't forget to buy the 2017 NFL Draft Analytics Guide, which is on Amazon.com. And I will talk to you guys next week. Again, thank you so much for all the support that I've received, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.